Hello, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of racing in the one and only Middle of the Pack Racing League Spring into F4 Championship for 2024, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform, available only on PC, known as iRacing, and sponsored by PT Actuator. The story of the season rages on, and with only 2 rounds to go, we are here today for round number 7 to 8 of the one and only Sonoma Raceway. Located in the northern half of the US state of California, this circuit has gone by many a name over the course of its what is the best part of its 55-year history, ranging all the way from what's the Sears Point Raceway through to the Infinium Raceway and its current name of the Sonoma Raceway. But regardless of its name, everything at its core has remained the same, and that is that this is a highly tricky track when it comes to nailing those apexes, as taken from its location on the southern foothills of what is the Sonoma Mountain Range, it is a circuit that is absolutely rampant with elevation changes over the course of its lap, and therefore it means many a corner will have an elevation change either at the apex, before it or after, all in between, and therefore for our drivers it's all about avoiding mistakes, with mistakes proving extremely costly and offering up overtaking opportunities that may not be possible elsewhere. But then again, even without the mistakes, this circuit packed with an absolutely brilliant set of corners in order to enable batting to go from lights out to checker flag, lap after lap, and well, for our drivers this could be the site of the big score that sees them go into the season finale. But whether it's IndyCar, Formula 1, NASCAR, or you name it, it's raced here. We're here today with Formula 4 machines. We take a look back at all the racing action as if it were live from the 7th round of the championship, which occurred earlier on in this week, and of course that was back on what was none other than Wednesday the 29th of May, but today is the Saturday the 1st of June 2024. It's crazy to think we're already into the 6th month of this calendar year. But as we get set and ready to go racing today, we welcome you all to this broadcast, indeed a live broadcast available on 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you can be tuning in right now via YouTube at youtube.com and search for TX141TX, alternatively Paul Walsh, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube. Alternatively, you could be tuning in via Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. For many of you will be asking, who is TX141 or who is Paul Walsh? Well, I'll introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media follow me on. Now I bring you all your racing action over the course of the entirety of the season. And our schedule for today, times in British Summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinate Time +1, UTC +1, is as follows. We can see that in just under 12 minutes time, we're going to the grid for our first of our 2 races today, and what will be our final double header round with our 2 sprint races, both 20 minutes in duration. The first one being up at 5:15 today, and then our second one will follow immediately afterwards, just after what will be 25 to 6. But it's been a lovely sunny day here at the California State Circuit, 26 degrees centigrade ambient temperature and 44 degrees centigrade track temperature. It is a scorcher, and I get the feeling it's not just going to be the track surface that's scorching, but it's also going to be some scorching hot rivalries between our drivers. But let's give you a recap of the championship so far and what we've still got lying in wait for. As we can see here, we're now into round number 7. We're midway for the Road Racer Cup, and after today we've only got 1 round remaining. Our season finale to wrap up the overall Drivers' Championships, the overall Teams Championship, and also the Road Racer Cup Championships, and that will be at the Circuit of the Americas with round number 8, our second and final feature race round of the season on the 5th of June. But we are here for round number 7, and prior to all this, when we open up the first 4 rounds of the season, the one and only Street Fighters Cup, and that started off at Long Beach, and it's quite interesting that we do return to California after starting in California, and we don't quite bookend the season with the California state, but we come close to it. But we start off in downtown Long Beach on the 10th of April, open up an absolutely brilliant round of racing, and then we made our way to the Chicago Street Course for what is the 17th of April in round number 2. Then making our way to Belle Isle, and indeed making our way over to the state of Michigan for the Detroit City Circuit, Belle Isle Park playing host on the 24th of April in round number 3. And then round number 4, we made our way to neighbouring Canada for the one and only Montreal Hybrid Street Circuit, and that was our first feature race round of the season on the 1st of May. Well, that we took our mid-season break and returned on the 15th of May for round number 5 at the Motorsport Circuit, staying in Canada, but shifting location from the Premier Street Circuit to the Premier Road Racing course of the country. And then last time out, round number 6, we're in the US state of Indiana. We returned for a triple header to complete our season in the United States of America. And on the 22nd of May, it was the Indianapolis Grand Prix Circuit that played host in the US state of Indiana, absolutely delivering the capital of world racing there, as it's self-proclaimed, and indeed it was the capital of some absolutely incredible battles across all 3 of our classes, and even did see was Aaron Lart in the Pro-Am class bring home a Pro-Am overall win. And well, we can count on less than 5 fingers how many Pro-Am drivers have done it, being the 3rd to do it if my memory serves me correctly. But could we see even more of that today at Sonoma? Well, going into today, the big question is, how does this championship stand in stand? And well, we take a look at what is the overall Drivers' Championships first and foremost, and as we can see in the Pro class, it is Jason Landry who leads by the best best part of 39 points over Tanner Dibble, and Landry right now is continuing to pull away with his consistency proving key and keeping himself right at the top of a double podium at Indianapolis. Tanner Dibble, meanwhile, while the driver has been there to match the pace of Landry, albeit hasn't had the fortune that he would like to have had over the last couple of rounds, and therefore falling closer and closer to Jaden Calloway, who is rising back up through the ranks in P3 on 402 points. It's only 10 points between the battlers for P2, but could Landry use today to break away and really give himself the ultimate comfort zone to go into that season finale? Edwin Offred, meanwhile, sits P4 on 309 points, the best part of which 21 ahead of Friends Washing as their battle for P4 continues. Jordan Butler not being too far behind, a further 16 behind them on 272. It's Mika Hendricks, Carl Ranieri and Milan Harris who complete the championship standings. And then come to the Prime class, and as we look to our second of our three classes, Julian Jones is the man who leads the way, 11 points clear of Adam J Ballard, and only a further 7 ahead of David Adeyeye. It is 18 points that separates the trio, and they've all come on strong in the second half of the season. And Adeyeye is perhaps the driver to watch out for more than anything, given the fact he has become a bit of a dark horse in this championship. In the first half of the season, he showed moments of brilliance, but he really has been the pace setter over the course of the second half of the season. The privateer flying under the ITT West banner, and we look forward to seeing whether he can take the fight to Jones and Ballard today. But indeed, all three of them could be leading out to today and going into that championship finale looking on strong form. Matt Best, meanwhile, for Texas Speed Sim Racing, creeps ahead of Kevin Clark by 2 points, but right now just not quite able to get his championship charge out of second gear. For every step he takes forward, there's always a slight half step back, it would seem, and Kevin Clark the same in P5 there as they both battle to try and hunt down the top three. There's Samuel Bernardi, P6, who hasn't been on the grid for the last 2 rounds, unfortunately, I believe due to personal circumstances. From what I'm hearing, though, he's doing A-OK. And then we do have Charles Holsey ahead of Aaron Lott and Joe Nagy to complete your top 10. In P11, it's Nick Bader on 234 points, the best part of what is their 49 ahead of David Turton, and Jermaine Warren and Stacey Bertrand complete the championship standings. And then comes the AM class. And we see Mark Senegal leads the way by 27 points over Jared Kelly. And well, things are finally poised here with Mark Senegal right now taking both class wins at Indianapolis and therefore extending his lead to the margin you see on screen. And Kelly is needing to find a way to bring Senegal back down to earth before he flies off into the distance at Texas. Carl Peterson, meanwhile, also starting to move further forward. Some great performances last time at Indianapolis for Peterson. And indeed, also we did see at Motorsport, could he suddenly become the main rival to Kelly for that battle for P2, as he's got a nice gap over Jason Seelin and Aaron Beaver, and also Kirk Lane. The 3 drivers are separated by only 4 points. Can you believe it? And Glenn Bratton a further 10 behind. That battle for P4 absolutely coming on form, and Bill DaCosta also in there on 230 points with a 14-point gap to Braden Melling, who picked up his first class podium last time out in race number 1 at Indianapolis. An absolutely brilliant finish in P2 in the class there, and therefore gaining a huge injection of points. And Nick Yakubov completes the top 10 on 204. Roger Nish sets a further 5 behind on 199 P11 ahead of Tim Chong, with Todd Miller and Christopher Holliday completing AM Championship standings overall. Then we come to the Teams Championship, and as we can see here, Sunday GT Turtles continue to lead the way, but their advantage, well, it's not expanding too much. It's increased a bit, but it's no more than the best part of 60 points there over ITT West. And right now, this Teams Championship is all to play for. DNA Motorsports not quite able to get themselves in arm's reach of the top 2, and still trying to stay clear of Rockefeller Esports Green, who are keeping them honest. Slipstream Slots complete your top 5 on 531. Way Sizable, what is 42-point gap to Caboose Crew. And there's Bearpo, Rockefeller Esports Purple ahead of Rockefeller Esports Red and Rockefeller Esports Orange, the 3 other Rockefeller teams, if you will, who complete the championship stands of 10 teams. But then coming on to the adjusted standings for our Cup, of course, now looking to what is the Road Racer Cup, and we're 2 rounds out of 4 in, and it is Jason Landry who leads the way on 184 points ahead of the 149 of Jordan Butler. Landry really has been the man to beat so far in the first 2 rounds of the Cup. Edwin Offred sits P3, and don't count him out in the fact that the privateer driver, whilst he may have had a bit of an anonymous run in what was the Street Fighters Cup in the first half of this season, he really is now starting to flex his muscle in the second half of the season. We saw that more so at Motorsport, but could we see a bit more of it today? Jaden Calloway's only been on the grid for 1 round of the Road Racer Cup so far, hence in P4 on 91 points, but ahead of Tanner Dibble and Carl Ranieri, who won on the grid in order to achieve points last time out, and therefore that's how they stand. And then come on to the Prime Cup, and as we can see here with the points adjusted, it's Aaron Lahr who leads the way after that overall win last time out in race number 2 was the Indianapolis circuit. An absolutely incredible win, putting him 10 points clear of David Adeyeye, who would be arguing that he should be leading if it weren't for Lahr's performance in that second race. However, Adeyeye will have the right to put that argument to the test day versus Lahr, but he's going to have to keep in mind he's got Julian Jones only 4 points behind, and it's a further point to Adam Ballard as this cup is entirely heating up. Matt Best sits in P5 on 145 points, where he's 20 behind the top top 4, but he's ahead of Kevin Clark by the best part of 6 points, ahead of Fernando Takahashi, who has a qualifying ban going into today. So therefore, you won't see Fernando Takahashi making his way onto the grid in other than the final spot on the grid. And then Stacey Bertrand, Charles Halsey, and Nick Bader complete your top 10, with Jermaine Moore in P11 and Joe Nagy bringing up the rear in P12. And then comes the AM Cup standings, and with the points adjusted for the AMs, Mark Senegal leads by a grand advantage of 16 points over Braden Melling, who has moved to P2 after that great set of performances Indianapolis and doing the same as Work Motorsport. So Melin right now really enjoying the time of his life in the Formula 4 machine. Head of Tim Chong in P3 on 121 points, and it's 4 to Billman DaCosta from him. Jared Kelly's only a further 3 behind, and it's a further 5 to Glenn Bratton, so it's all to play for in terms of fish inside the top 3. For Senegal is the man who's pulling away at the top of the standings. And Jason Seelin in P7 on 83 points. He's only 1 point clear of Carl Peterson, with Aaron Beaver in P9 ahead of Kirk Lane to complete the top 10. Outside the top 10, we do have Todd Miller P11 ahead of Roger Ganesh, and that's how the AM Cup Championship standings stand. And then as we come onto our circuit for today, well, we talked about it earlier, but let's introduce it more formally. As you can see, our drive today will be taken on the NASCAR short layout, also known as the historic Cup layout of the one and only Sonoma Raceway circuit, located in what is the range of Cities Point in the Sonoma County of the US state of California. Well, a big thank you to iRacing for their brilliant simulator and the fantastic track maps that come with it. And as we can see here, this circuit absolutely bringing together a whole medley of sweeping corners. But the one thing that a two-dimensional image doesn't show you, of course, is what is the elevation changes. And the most pronounced one being the run uphill through the kink of 1 all the way into the right-hander of turn number 2. Perhaps the biggest gradient change over the course of the entire lap. As the drivers roar their way around here, they'll have to do all those elevation changes and sweeping corners in equal measure, and they will charge their way out of what is turn number 12 to go onto a lap and make their way through the kink of 1. As they head uphill towards turn number 2, it's all about braking as late as possible, but being wary of the fact you're braking it into a left-hand kink followed by the right-hand turn, and it can very easily unsettle your racing machine, particularly in these Formula 4 cars with their downforce. And as they make their way over the crest of 2, it's in a short run in towards turns 3 and 4. There, the left into right medium speed chicane sees our drivers go for another elevation change, and the apex of turn 4 being entirely blind. And as they make their way out of 4, it's the downhill run in towards turn 5. And as we can see, rather than turning back on ourselves, which would be the full Cup layout or the NASCAR long layout, instead our drivers will go down the connecting straight from turns 5 to 6, hard on the brakes they'll go into the effective hairpin corner. And as they make their way out of turn 6, extend the flat-out charge through the curves of 7 and into 8 and 8A, where they're building up the speed rather aggressively. And as they come flat out through the left-hander turn number 9, it's all then going to be about a lift and shift potentially in towards turn number 10, as our drivers have to take full commitment in order to carry as much speed as possible through the right-hander of turn number 10 and down into the hairpin of turn number 11. Then we can expect plenty of batting overtaking opportunity on the brakes, and we could see 2, 3 or even 4 wide at the hairpin. But as the drivers make the way out, they need to settle themselves down, as there's no runoff area, there's only the pit wall barrier to contend with. And as they make the way out to 11, it's the charge through the kink of 12 to complete lap and do it all over again, or to finally meet that checker flag. Once we get ready to go race, of course, a quick reminder of the rules. Setup wise, drivers are running a fixed setup as provided by our administrators, with fuel loads restricted to 14 litres, and that means in terms of the races in general, when the races do start by a standard grid start, as is the rule set of this league, with each driver having 1 fast repair available, and that's the only time we're expecting them to come into the pits. We're not expecting any pit stops for fuel or tyres, and the only other reason would be if they've picked up a drive-through penalty, and that'll be for 15 or more instant points. The grid order for race number 1 shall be set based on the closed qualifying session beforehand, which is just completing as of this time. We'll walk you through the grid for race number 1 very shortly, and the grid for race number 2 shall be set based on results of race number 1, albeit with the top 10 positions inverted. What does that mean in layman's terms? Well, it means that the winner of race number 1, they start P10 on the grid for race number 2, and we flip the top 10 order, so that way the 10th place finisher in race number 1 starts on pole for race number 2, and those who finished 11th and downwards in race 1, well, you guessed it correctly, they start exactly where they finished for race number 2. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we do look back to circuit side, and as we do, the circuit falls silent, and I believe that grid is just about to be set, and as it does so, we'll get ready to walk you through that starting grid as the circuit falls quiet, and here it is. Jason Landry then takes pole position with a 1 minute 10.967 for Sunday GT Turtles for our first race of the day. He's joined on the front row by a fellow pro driver of Tanner Dibble for DNA Motorsports, and then we do have on row at number 2, one is David Adeyeye taking P3 and prime pole position there, the privateer, in an absolutely brilliant lap, and indeed joined on the second row of the grid by Jaden Calloway. Behind them, we'll have the partnership of what will be Matt Best for Texas Speed Sim Racing, and DNA Motorsports is Jordan Butler, and keep in mind, of course, that Butler will be starting behind his ITT West rival and looking to go batting with him into the opening corners, given their championship standings. Then Mark Senegal will be your AM pole sitter, starting at P7 there on the fourth row of the grid for Sunday GT Turtles, and he'll be absolutely ecstatic about that, given the fact a well-deserved pole position, no doubt about it, and a key one at this time by 2 tenths over Jared Kelly. But before we get to Kelly, who starts P10, we've got Julian Jones at P8 on the grid for ITC West, and Charles Halsey at P9 for Rockefeller Esports Green. The two prime drivers there being in the middle of the AM sandwich. Kelly giving that run to the end of the top 10 there in P10, the privateer. Day return starts P11 for Slipstream Sloths, ahead of Adam J Ballard for Rockefeller Esports Purple on your 6th row of the grid. On row number 7, we're going to have Kevin Clark, the privateer, ahead of Todd Miller for Caboose Crew. And then it will be Kirk Lane, who starts P15 for Bearpoat, ahead of Joe Nagy for Rockefeller Esports Orange. And all AM 9th row of the grid, Carl Peterson for Caboose Crew, not quite hooking up the lap, it would seem, but still 2 tenths faster than Slipstream Sloths' Nick Yakubov. And completing your top 20, Glenn Bratton, the privateer, ahead of Bearpoat's Billman DaCosta. And then it will be on what is the 11th and final row of the grid, Aaron Lahr, the privateer, and Braden Mellin, the privateer. No Fernando Takahashi on the grid, so therefore I do believe his penalty will carry forward into round number 8, albeit there's no qualifying session there, so we'll go into the next MPRL season. But that is your grid of 22, ladies and gentlemen. It is almost set as all drivers get themselves in position. And as we do look down to what is the front row of the grid, well, there is Jason Landry, and alongside him will be Tanner Dibble, the DNA Motorsports driver. Starting a little bit further back, of course, given the way they do line up his grids, they're not completely aligned. This is not like, say, a Bathurst, for example, in Australia, but still, as all drivers wait on that grid, it's a short run to turn number 1. You can see it there, the left-hand kink ahead, and Dibble wants to get the launch and go hunting versus Landry, but will he be able to do so? We're only 40 seconds away from the lights out procedure kicking off, if not sooner. We're only waiting for Aaron Lahr to take his spot on the grid starting P21. But as all the drivers wait, well, it's a short run, and Landry will be all too cognizant of that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, the lights are going on, and well, without further ado, for round number 7, it's going to be 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for our first race of the day here at Sonoma Raceway as Landry gets a reasonable start, but Dibble looks up the inside. Dibble gets the better launch, and in to the lead he goes. Up through turn 1, in towards 2 they go. And as they go 2 wide into the braking zone here, well, brilliant battle in between them. Landry does get back ahead further down the order. We can see that everyone's safely on through the opening couple of corners, but Landry having to go very defensive at the head of the snake as they wind and weave their way on up towards turns 3 and 4. This is Joe Nagy, meanwhile, trying to go inside to outside around what is none other than Kirk Lane as they battle their way down. Lane defending here and digging in hard as Nagy now being made to wait in the run down towards 5. And as they come on through their lovely camera angle to show you how they X out the right angle corner turn 5 and make the run down towards the hairpin at 6 on that short layout, and Nagy still battling side by side as meanwhile further down that is Carl Peterson taking the trip very deep and wide at turn number 6, and that is going to release what will be Aaron Lahr up into P19 after a dismal qualifying session. But the drivers make the way on through the sweep as we look back to the front of the field, and Landry versus Dibble. It is Landry who holds on for now as they come down towards what will be the hairpin for the first time, turn 11. Side by side in the rear of the picture, that is Jordan Butler, who had a bit of a moment there versus what was Matt Best. He ran wide out to turn at number 10. A brilliant start for Matt Best, it should be pointed out. Great qualifying session, holding position at the moment in P5. That's exactly what he's needed at the bookend of this season. With Charles Halsey, meanwhile, side by side here with Jones. They head across the timeline. They're going to give each other space or thereabouts. And as they come through turn 1, up the hill they'll go. It's going to be Halsey on the outside. This will come the inside into turn number 2. Full commitment there for the 100 driver. And Julian Jones right now being made to stay in place. Well, at least it would seem. Halsey now having to go defensive into 3. Jones tries to get him to go a bit deep. Looks for the cutback. Can't quite find it. Halsey absolutely nails it. But meanwhile, behind Adam Ballard, battling side by side there, a bit of contact between some Todd Miller, wheels touching as they head down in towards turn number 5 once again. As they hit hard on the anchors here, run wide, I believe, and that's from Ballard, who's gone wide, and Miller gives him the space to rejoin. And well, that will be the end of that battle for now. But I think Miller now cognizant of the fact he's got Kevin Clark queuing up behind him, Nick Yakubov and Kurt Lane there 2 wide. Braden Mellin trying to make some progress. He's already getting 3 place in the M class since the start of this race, ahead of Peterson, Bratton, and DaCosta. So therefore, Mellin may have had a dismal qualifying session, but he's not going to let that take away his momentum as he makes his way in towards the S's sequence. But as he does so, weaving and winding his way, and through turn number 10 he comes for the second time today. Well, he heads on down towards the hairpin, and right now these drivers absolutely giving it everything. And well, Kevin Clark there up the inside of Miller, and well, an easy change there for the prime driver versus the AM. I think Miller not wanting to fight it too hard, and D. Clark chasing after Ballard. But after 2 laps of racing, it is Landry who leads ahead of Dibble, followed by David Adeyeye in P3, your prime leader, as you see him there in the privateer machine. He's got hot on his heels a fellow ITC West driver, Jaden Calloway, representing the team officially this season. Your third place pro driver, P4 overall ahead of Matt Best, followed by Jordan Butler, and then your AM leader, Mark Senegal, P7 for Sunday GT Turtles, with Charles Halsey P8 ahead of Julian Jones P9, and Jared Kelly completes your top 10 with David Turn just missing out in being inside the top 10. Bester as P11 at the moment as they come on down through turn 5 once more. But meanwhile, oh my goodness, and that is a bit of contact there between Ballard and Clark, I believe. And well, Ballard's gone to a tyre barrier, but been able to avoid getting embedded in it. But meanwhile, it's gone very, very wrong very quickly there for what was our driver of, excuse me, I do believe that was none other, where it was, I do believe it was Todd Miller who went on around, but he's been able to get the car turned around once again. The Caboose Crew driver picking up momentum. And in fact, it was Kevin Clark, we should correct ourselves, and Kevin Clark has got himself resumed, albeit the Haas driver down in P20. We've got two drivers who have been towed to the pits meanwhile. That's Joe Nagy and Braden Melling. I believe they've had a bit of a coming together on the run through turns 3 and 4. And indeed, some drama in was the early stage of this race. But as we look back to a dramatic battle at the front of the field, well, they make their way up the hill once more, and as they do through 1 and 2, you can see now that Dibble really having to try and find a way to get under the skin of the Canadian driver in front of him, in the fact that right now Landry absolutely settling on down, can't break away. And as they come through the right under 4 down towards 5, that's the one thing we've seen all season with these FIA Formula 4 machines, is the fact they really struggle to break away from each other. The tow is so strong, and well, as Landry pushing it to the limit, they're coming through 5 and avoiding the outside wall just about. Well, as much as he opens up the gap to half a second coming out of 5, by the time he comes through 6, goes a little bit deep in the hunt for a late apex, and Dibble in the end is able to come back in as they now make the way up towards what will be at turn number 11. And as they charge their way up through the gearboxes in towards the left-hander 9 and down to the right-hander 10. They come through, it's completely flat out, there's no hesitation, and Landry's showing that here it's full commitment, whereas in other machines it's a lift into turn 10, but not so in the Formula 4s. Meanwhile, Kirk Lane battling with Aaron Law, and well, Law's going to look round the outside of 9 to get the inside of 10, too wide they'll go. The American driver here makes it through, but he goes a bit wide. That's going to put some dirt and dust on his tyres. That's not going to be helpful for when he comes down to the braking zone for 11. Does get it stopped, but you'll notice that the car's snaking from left to right, and that's where he hasn't got as much grip on the tyres until he manages to get the dirt off, and therefore the car struggling to slow as it normally would, but manages to do so in the end. Oh, goodness me, and meanwhile, going around at turn number 2, well, I don't think we get a replay of it due to limitations on iRacing replay file, but the 132 driver and your lead of the prime class, David Adeyeye, has had a spin at turn 2. I suspect he may have clipped the apex curb quite high because, well, he was not close to Jaden Calloway at that point, or indeed Matt Best, and I think under his own volition, Adeyeye has sent himself tumbling down the order of P11, and Matt Best, for a long time since the early stage of the season, finds himself at lead in the prime class once again. And the 101 driver here will right now look to give a 101 demonstration for the remainder of the 15 minutes of this race of how you lead in the prime class and not make a mistake at Sonoma Raceway. But then again, it's much easier said than done, and well, when Adeyeye gets it wrong, anybody can get it wrong, no doubt about it, as Adeyeye really has been Mr. Consistent in the prime class since the start of the second half of the season. But as we see Best chasing after Calloway, meanwhile Butler a little bit further behind. Right now has got the grime presence of where's Charles Halsey behind him, and well, Halsey, to be fair, putting in some absolutely brilliant laps so far, and Butler's pace not quite that of the leaders as they head on to the next lap. But as they do, well, the league qualifying times in, well, 1 minute 10.9, Jason Landry being the one to set the ultimate pole time, of course, and we are starting to see some 1 minute 10.9s in terms of fastest laps from drivers. Both Dibble and Calloway have set one. Landry's come extremely close, within 200s of doing so the pace in these cars is now starting to evolve as the track continues to stay warm, but the fuel's coming down, and also on top of that, of course, the tyres are up to temperature. And whereas Butler looks to hold on here as he makes his way on through turn number 5 up towards 6. That exit will ever close on the exit at turn number 5, of course. And as they make their way on towards the braking zone here for the right-hander. Well, Butler right now keeping it cool. Meanwhile, a bit of a moment there from Halsey carrying too much speed. But meanwhile, speaking of moments, this is getting very close between Landry and Dibble as they make their way in towards turn number 10. We ride on board here. We're the chaser of Dibble in the 00 machine. And right now, as he looks towards turn number 11, will he go for under braking here? No, he thinks about it, but decides not to. Pulls out the toe there to send mixed messages to Landry in terms of, am I going to go for it? But I think the idea was to try and bleed off some of the excess speed from being in the slipstream on through the S's, and therefore the DNA Motorsports driver right now knowing that he can get within attacking distance of Landry, and he's still got plenty of this race to go, as meanwhile Yakov's had to be towed to the pits after an incident I do believe may have involved both him and also Aaron Lars, we understand it, off camera. But right now on camera you're seeing the battle for the overall win and also the win of the pro class in this race, presuming that Jaden Calloway, who's 1.8 seconds behind, doesn't get involved. But then again, there's a long time before he does need to get involved, given this race has still got over half its duration to go. But as they come out of 5 and in towards 6 right now, Landry and Dibble absolutely pushing each other onwards and looking to just break away. as they come on through at the S's once more. Meanwhile, we look at J Ballard, who's chasing after Glenn Bratton. Bratton's up to P5 in the AM class. Meanwhile, Ballard, your prime P6 driver, currently P15 overall. And remember, as always, try and score points based on overall finishing position first and foremost. There are bonus points for the podiums in the prime and the AM classes, 3 for first, 2 for second, and 1 for third. But otherwise, your big score is the 50 points for taking the overall win. And well, each position down, points taken away. But meanwhile, looking at the inside there, that's Ballard up the inside. Oh, Bratton. Bratton makes it nice and open for him. And indeed, I think Glenn Bratton at this point more wary of the fact he doesn't want to fight with Wes Ballard, in the fact that we've got Carl Peterson 2.5 seconds up the road from them last time we checked, and behind Kirk Lane is encroaching fast, and he'll love to have an opportunity at the privateer of Bratton as they head in towards turn number 11. But as they wind their way out, the S's then up towards the hairpin, they'll go nose to tail for now. No sign of a move coming once again. And I think right now Lane just trying to see what he can do as Bratton goes very deep there out of 11, just brings it back together before Lane's able to get alongside. But as they head up the hill, well, right now we ride on board the front wing, looking on from the end plate there of the 281. And as he chases after Bratton, you can see the elevation change he makes up here. In fact, getting very close there. Bratton struggling for pace uphill, and Lane having to back off, and that unsettling the car and catching Lane out. Well, now he knows where Bratton is vulnerable, but overtaking through turns 1 and 2, you need to really be side by side going into turn 1. But Bratton has a poor run out of turn 4. Lane's going to look up the inside here. Does he go for the lunge? No, he doesn't. Knowing the apex tapers off very aggressively, and therefore he doesn't want to run the risk of leading to a contact between the two of them. So therefore holding it back here in P16, goes very deep into turn number 6. So looking to get the cutback V-shape apex there, not quite able to. Meanwhile, up the inside to take P7 off of Mark Senegal, and that is Julian Jones, who continues to push forward in the prime class, getting ahead of the AM leader, and Jared Kelly now on the back of this as they make the way up towards turn number 1. And well, Kelly only 7 attempts behind here as they head on the rise, and I think the full process of the 255 driver is, well, now that Senegal's lost a place and therefore lost a little bit of pace by just being put out of position, can he get back? And remember, these two are your leaders in the AM class championship overall for this season. It's Senegal ahead of Kelly, and right now Kelly is looking to try and come back and overhaul what is a 27-point deficit, where he needs to get ahead of Senegal. If he doesn't do that, then the deficit will continue to stay as it is, if not grow, as they head in towards turn number 6 and move into the second half point of this race. But as they head in towards what will be the S's, meanwhile executing the S's and leaving them is Jordan Butler, who still has Charles Halsey for a bit of baggage behind him, and that's not to be rude, but the fact it does seem as though the DNA Motorsports driver is really pulling Halsey along here, and the Rockefeller Esports green driver, we're more than happy to stay right behind Butler and really use him as a gauge and potentially fight with him in the last couple of laps. If they can't find their way closer to best, then Halsey will know all we need to do at that point is bring on the P2 in the prime class and fight Butler for what will be 5th place overall and some extra points. And well, Butler I don't think is too keen on having the Rockefeller Esports green driver behind him right now as they make the way through the kink of 1. But as they head up the rise, we'll have to wait and see whether Butler can shake the tail, alternatively whether he is chased all the way to the end as they make the way out of turn number 2 and in towards 3-4 they go. And you can see there just how easy it is to be made to go wide there as Butler dealing with the off camber from the apex, and the car naturally flying out almost towards the exit curve and indeed towards the gravel as he does take a trip to what is the grass there at turn number 4. And despite what you see in the simulator on iRacing with regards to an absence of grass at this circuit, indeed it does depend on the time of year you do visit the Sonoma Raceway circuit. But if you do visit in the spring season, you can imagine that all of these rather dry, what is yellowy brown grass patches, well, they are normally verdant green, and indeed it is a very picturesque circuit when you do visit outside the summer season. But in the peak of summer right now, that's why there's no grass, and indeed Butler absolutely trying to hold on. I should say no grass with traditional colour, but it is the pressure that the 72 driver will have that will keep him away from looking at the grass, and he'll be making sure not to step on it, as always he will lose the position. As he heads in towards another lap, going on to what will be his 11th tour of the circuit under race conditions. A very fast lap here, the best part of what is 1 minute 10 on average. Meanwhile, as they head up the hill, and indeed continue their ascent up the hill, Jason Landry still with Tanner Dibble for close company, rolling through the left into the right. And as they come out to the right hand, the number 5 driver continues to hold on versus the 00, but these two at the best part now of what is almost 4 seconds clear of 3rd place man Jaden Calloway, and the ITT West driver still has the distant company of Texas Speed Sim Race's Matt Best. And roll credits where it's due to the 101 driver in the fact I really think this has been a challenging season for the Texas Speed Sim Racing driver. In fact, he showed so much pace in what's the first couple of races, but no fortune came his way. And in the mid-portion of the season, he really has struggled to really reignite that pace that we saw in rounds 1 and 2. But right now, best not putting a foot wrong here. And indeed, in turn, looking for a P4, which would be his highest overall finish in this season, matching his best overall finish in the Middle of the Pack Racing League Series in the GR86 Championship at the start of this year, the Winter Series, of course. And right now on course for what will be his first prime win of the season as he heads onwards towards the next lap. Meanwhile, Butler, they're almost scraping the wall, and the same for Hosey as they make their way in towards the next lap, going onwards then with 7 minutes to go. But right now it is all about putting pressure on each other and goading the other driver into a mistake. And well, it may seem as though that as the leader of the battle, that you're the one under greater pressure, and arguably that's true, but do remember, you dictate the pace as the leader, and your rival behind A has to match you on pace, and then subsequently has to surpass you on pace and find a way to safely overtake you. And that is why there's just as much pressure on the chaser as there is the person being chased. And it's why it is truly a game of cat and mouse, as they say, as they head down towards 6. A look there from Hosey. And I think Hosey's patience now is really starting to wear thin. I think you can see there's an opportunity here, but he wants to line it up at the absolutely right point in time. And Butler looking a little bit frazzled by what was a potential move from Hosey into turn 6. So you can see it compromise Butler's line coming out to the right-hand hairpin. And Hosey all over the back of his Butler goes defensive through 9 in towards 10. But again, being made to take a slightly different line, being made to take a slight deviation onto the grass. And therefore, for Butler, Hosey has really got in his head now and has got to keep this pressure on the 100 car, because if he does so, it could be a mistake that enables him to take the position without having to enact any further overtaking opportunities. But meanwhile, Julian Jones behind, 1.3 seconds back at the moment, and on that last lap, Jones gained a 10, so Jones is starting to close up, where Hosey is all over the back of Butler but can't find his way through. We're coming on through turn number 2, up towards 3-4 they go. Meanwhile, we do look back to the battle for the AM win, and this is Kelly chasing it after what is Senegal as they make the way uphill through 3-4. No change in the gap between them, still 6 tenths, and it seems to have averaged at 6 tenths around the whole lap. In terms of the pace advantage, well, on the previous lap, Kelly was short of Senegal's lap by the best part of 700s, but at the same time as well, I would imagine that having the slipstream here means that Kelly doesn't have to really worry about losing a couple of hundredths to marking the fact that Jared's just going to be thinking, okay, keep my head down, I can gain it back by just running his toe a little bit, but he won't want that gap to get more than a second, because that's when the toe starts to become a little bit weaker in terms of the overall slipstream strength, and indeed that's where you start to lose the pace in your rival. If you haven't got the natural pace to keep with them, you'll start to lose time on them and start to lose the opportunity to go hunting right at the end. But meanwhile, there has been a mistake from Glenn Bratton. He's off in the grass, and that, I do believe, is coming out of 4 into 5. That's enabled Billman DaCosta to get ahead. And meanwhile, we do have what is, I believe, Julian Jones has had an error somewhere, most likely at the turn 11 hairpin, because he has been passed by Jordan Butler. And right now, Hosey's looking up the inside into 2. He can't find it. And, well, we're not quite sure what the story is, but the 133 driver's had a spin, and I'm hearing in my ear it was at turn 11 on the hairpin, and he's under his own volition. And Jones right now having to essentially play the game of keeping ahead of Hosey for as long as possible as they head in towards what is turn number 5. And in fact, the more and more I'm hearing in my ear, I think I misheard what was said. I think it was in fact that Hosey had an error chasing after Butler coming out the hairpin, and that's enabled Jones to get ahead, which would make more sense given the fact that last time we checked, Jones was behind Hosey, not in front of him, and also he was also behind Butler. So therefore, Jones up in a P2 in the prime class now, and Charles Hosey down to P3, and Jordan Butler in P5 overall, being allowed to just run away. But as they head on towards the end of this lap, coming up to the corner where it all went wrong for Charles Hosey last time round, we do look to the 100 drive being made to push hard. And as we said earlier, that is the story of what is the pressure that's put on both the chaser and also those being chased when you are in that back and forth cat and mouse battle, in the fact that you've got to be running to the absolute limit if you're meeting your equal match. And that's the lovely thing about having the 3 classes in the grid in any middle of the pack racing league series, in the fact they're all encouraged to battle each other, and that's how the prams and AMs develop quickly over the course of the season, because they want the points of the pros just as much as they want the points of each other. But meanwhile, change of position further down the order, Carl Peterson's got ahead of Glenn Bratton, and Glenn Bratton going quite slowly, I believe, coming on through the S's. So Bratton's been able to be passed by Carl Peterson, now up into P4 in the AM class, and well, Senegal and Kelly are miles away from Peterson, so therefore the top 2 in the AM Championship overall going to continue to extend their natural advantage up the order. Meanwhile, Kurt Lane And a very interesting moment there under braking, almost going into the barrier. I don't know if you guys and girls saw that at home, in the fact as he made his way onto the brakes, the car snapping loose on him, and I think perhaps just downshifting a bit too aggressively, and the engine lifting up in the rear of this machine. Of course, these Formula 4 cars, they have their engines placed behind the driver, and with very aggressive downshifts, what can happen is essentially every time you do a downshift, it's known as engine braking, and you're essentially forcing the car to go to the highest possible revs within the lower gear, and what if you do it too quickly, it can cause the engine to effectively lift up in the rear of the car, and the weight distribution of the car suddenly gets pitched very far forward, and that releases the rear end of the car and it turns it into a pendulum. And that's exactly what we saw there for Lane under braking. Also, I think with a little bit of steering input as well, which won't have helped. You want to always brake in a straight line where you can. And well, right now Lane looking to try and get himself back in the hunt versus Bratton for what will be the final spot in the AM top 5 P15 as they make the way on through the S's. But as they do, you can see Lane's close enough to think about it, but right now not able to consider exactly where he's going to go for the move as they roll through turn number 10. Meanwhile, off camera, Landry and Dibble, your race leaders, are just going for the S's at the moment. They'll be going on to their what will be their final lap after the one they're currently on. Meanwhile, the two drivers we're riding with here, right on board with Lane and the 281 in P16. Right now, they are looking to go on to what will be their penultimate lap of racing, as meanwhile, looking further up the field, and indeed coming out of what is the final major corner to go on to their last lap in this first race today, going on to what will be a 17th and final lap. It's Landry versus Dibble still, and well, the gap 3.5 tenths, but it has been a lot closer over the course of the previous lap, given the ebb and flow of the tow, and Landry now is where the business is meant, and Dibble I don't think is going to hold back. He's been keeping anything reserved. He's now got to try and show it as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the race leader. Current from the left into right turns 3 and 4, and Dibble there taking a much more aggressive run out of 4, but it kicks the car wide with a bit of understeer, and Dibble it started to bear his fangs, but I think getting a little bit too eager. That's going to in fact cost him half a tenth as they make their way in towards turn number 6. Now can Dibble get the better run off the corner compared to Landry? It's about the same, 3.5 tenths they exit. Dibble now naturally closer in the S's, but the problem here is in the fact that Dibble's only got one place he can look for move, and that is in the turn 11 hairpin. But if Landry is ahead by 2.5 tenths by the time they get to that braking zone, he'll feel safe. 1.5 tenths is where you really need to come from. It's going to be 2.5 tenths they come through turn number 10. I don't think Dibble's going to have enough here as he powers his way up behind Jaden Calloway. Off camera's had an off track that's released Matt Best up in the P3, we should point out. But right now, as they come on through the final corners, Wheels under pressure and pole all the way to the finish, but the pressure wasn't enough from Tanner Dibble, and Jason Landry will take victory in race number 1 of the day here at Sonoma Raceway ahead of Tanner Dibble P2, and in P3 overall will go to his first Pro-Am win of the season. It is Matt Best for Texas Speed Sim Racing, his first overall podium of the season as well. Picking up the P2 from Jaden Calloway finishes P4 ahead of Jordan Butler. Julian Jones will take the runner-up spot in the Pro-Am class. P6 for ITC West ahead of Charles Holsey, and then AM winner comes up through. It's Mark Senegal, who despite the pressure leveraged against him by Jared Kelly, takes P8 overall and extends his advantage over the privateer, with David Turn completing your top 10. Meanwhile, in the AM podium battle, Todd Miller's going to come on home to bring home what will be a third place on the AM podium, P12 overall for the Caboose crew. They're going to be absolutely ecstatic about that, no doubt about it, because they've had a glut of podiums since some earlier on in the season. But Miller crosses the line there, and it's a further 6 seconds to Adam Ballard, who comes home P13 for Rockefeller Esports Purple. And then we do have Carl Peterson, who in the end drove very well to come through the back of the order after falling towards the back of it on the open lap to finish P4 in the AM class and P14 for the Caboose crew. And then Kirk Lane wraps up your top 15 for Bear Pope in a challenging race, no doubt about it for him. 2 seconds clear of Kevin Clark, and Glenn Bratton will just finish behind Clark as they come on through and ahead of Bill and DaCosta, who is your last lead lap finisher. But what a first race of the day, ladies and gentlemen, and well, we've now got 2 minutes before our second race gets underway, and that's just enough time for us to walk you through the finishing positions of our first race of the day. And these results, of course, provisional, subject to any stewards' inquiries after our first race here in round number 7 in the middle of the pack Racing League Spring into F4 Championship for 2024, sponsored by PT Actuator, and Jason Landry taking the first overall win of the day at the Sonoma Raceway for Sunday GT Turtles by 3.5 tenths over DNA Motorsports' Tanner Dibble. Texas Speed Sim Race's Matt Best takes his first overall podium of the season and his first prime win of the season as well. Congratulations to the 101 driver, well deserved, ahead of Jaden Calloway for the ITT West team and Jordan Butler for DNA Motorsports spots completing your top 5. Julian Jones run up in the Prime class, P6 there for ITT West after picking up a late place in Charles Halsey for Rockefeller Esports Green, who wrapped up the Prime podium. Then Mark Senegal, P8 in the overall standings, but most importantly for him, another AM win to his name, 3 in a row now for Sunday GT Turtles, ahead of Jared Kelly, the privateer, who kept him honest all the way to the end. Your top 10 was completed by David Turn, the Prime driver Slipstream Sloths, ahead of David Adeyeye, with Todd Miller, your third place finisher in the AM class, P12 overall for Caboose Crew, ahead of Adam J Ballard, and Carl Peterson and Kirk Lane completing your top 15. Kevin Clark was P16 at the close, a difficult first race of the day for him. Glenn Bratton, meanwhile, fighting back to a good P17 finish ahead of Billman DaCosta, who was your last lead lap finisher. Then 2 laps down, but classified finishers, Joe Nagy and Nick Yakubov for Rockefeller Esports Orange and Slipstream Sloths respectively. And we had our 2 retirees, Aaron Lahr and Braden Mellin, the 2 privateers having a nightmare start to their day in the US state of California. And well, can they have a better second race? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've still got one more race to come, and we'll hold on to your hats because in 20 seconds time we head into the grid for our second and final race of the day here at the Sonoma Raceway circuit. We are running a little bit behind schedule, but that's the natural transition between the races. But as our screen does clear, it's still a lovely summer's day here, and indeed with barely any cloud afoot, that circuit temperature continues to stay high. But without further ado, the quality of the race will also stay high as we make our way into our second and final race of the day. And as our drivers make their way onto the grid, whilst we can't necessarily give you a full walkthrough of the grid, I should say, we can tell you how they're all going to line up for what will be the second and final race at Sonoma Raceway. On pole with the top 10 inverted grid, it will be David Turn, who is joined on the front row of the grid by Jared Kelly. Mark Senegal starts P3 ahead of Charles Halsey, with Julian Jones and Jordan Butler on row number 3. Jaden Calloway and Matt Bester on row 4 ahead of Tanner Dibble and Jason Landry to complete your top 10. We then have on the 6th row of the grid David Adeyeye and Todd Miller, with Adam J Ballard starting P13 ahead of Carl Peterson. We'll then have Kirk Lane and Kevin Clark on row number 8 ahead of Glenn Bratton and Billman DaCosta. Joe Nagy and Nick Yakubov complete your top 20, and then Aaron Lahr and Braden Mellin start while they finished after their retirements in race number 1, P21 and P22. But the grid is set, ladies and gentlemen. We look down. It's David Turn who's on pole, but can he hold on to the very end? But without further ado, it is going to be lights out, and away we go for the second race of the day here at Sonoma Raceway. And Turn gets a good start, but look at Kelly immediately battling Mark Senegal as they get underway. Kelly struggling for launch as they head up the hill, and Senegal's going to try and go outside to inside here into turn 2, but the 2 of them very tentative in this early attack, in the fact that right now cold tyres, and indeed they won't want to overheat the tyres too soon. But the drivers make the way up the ride. You can see there further down Jordan Butler battling side by side with Jaden Calloway in the head of what is the pro battle as they weave and wind their way. Braden Mellin not able to get the car to the grid, so 21 starters in the end. Billman DaCosta down in last in P21 at the moment. Jordan Butler still holding on as meanwhile 3 drives all there, almost hitting the barrier, and that I believe was Todd Miller, David Adeyeye and Tanner Dibble all taking evasive actions. All 3 of them scraped the tyre barrier on the exit of turn number 5, and with Jason Landry coming right onto the back of that battle, with Adam Ballard right on his heels as well, so very close between all of them. And as they make the way on through the S's now, well, things will calm down for a brief moment. But one thing that is definitely not calming down is the battle for the second place spot overall and the AM lead. Kelly holding on, but he has got huge pressure from Mark Senegal behind, and here comes Charles Halsey diving up the inside of Senegal, and well, the prime driver wants to make sure that Turn doesn't get away before it's too late. But from them, Tanner Dibble still being chased after by Matt Best. He has got ahead of Best and Adeyeye behind him. As they head across the timeline onto lap number 2, well, right now very quickly that top 10 inverted grid started to battle in amongst itself as the faster drives begin to carve their way through it, but everyone trying to hold on. As meanwhile there's been an error for Jared Kelly. He's been sent round at turn number 2. Now, was that aided, or alternatively was it his own volition? Well, we can't get a replay of it, but what we can tell you is it does release Mark Senegal into the AM lead, and Charles Halsey will now be given breathing room. I wonder if there was some contact between Halsey and Kelly as they made the way through turn number 2, because Halsey was going through with a full head of steam last time we checked. But to be fair, that's not to point the finger at him, but it can happen. But either way, Halsey is up into P2, and meanwhile Julian Jones in at P4. Well, right now holding on against what is the pro leader Jordan Butler behind in P5 as they weave their way into the S's this time, and the field starts to separate a bit more as Butler there pulling off the racing line for a brief moment. In fact, Calloway getting very close there and almost rear-ending his rival, and I think Calloway will be wondering what exactly happened there, because they made their way in towards the hairpin under braking this time. time. It's going to be 2 by 2 they go as Jones versus Butler. Meanwhile, Dibble and Calloway exchanging places. Oh, goodness me! Car into the barrier and collecting Matt Best. And as they all come together, it's a nightmare incident for many a driver. Best onto his roof. And what after was an absolutely lovely first race of the day, with the Best it's ended in tears with only 2.5 minutes of the second race of the day. And well, in the end, are coming together for David Adeyeye. Also, what was Matt Best, and we'll see Jordan Butler. And goodness me, I also believe there was a fourth driver involved, and that was Julian Jones. And well, all 4 of them going 3 wide coming out of the final corner. And it goes to show that Kinga turn number 12, you can't go 3 wide for it, 2 wide at best. And I don't think anybody wanted to give in. And in the end, everyone finding what was the pit wall barrier, and the rest was history. But as we continue to look at those who are able to survive the madness of what happened at the end of what's lap number 2, well, meanwhile, Jaden Calloway now clear of a good number of his rivals in the hunt for what is the overall win, albeit behind Tanner Dibble and Calloway pulling each other along with Jason Landry 1.2 seconds behind. And the Sunday GT Turtles driver right now thinking about what could be just a bit further up the road, as meanwhile further down the order, Joe Nagy, who we see here in the number 111, the Rockefeller Esports orange driver, finds himself in the AM sandwich, and he's the fill-in with the fact that behind him he's got Jared Kelly, and Kelly after that spin was turn number 2, only a lap ago, looks up the inside, a bit of contact to the rear, a lock up on the brakes for Wiz Kelly, and the closing speed there for Jared Kelly. I mean, whilst he had the toe, Kelly right now definitely showing he's got a lot of pace here, and the 255 driver just wants to get through. He wants to go hunting back after AM positions for the simple reason he knows that right now, if Mark Single brings home a P3 overall and thereby the AM win this second race a day, it means that the AM Championship, well, it is firmly in Senegal's hands in the season finale. There is, of course, a drop score to be factored into what is the standings going into the season finale, but even if Senegal has not taken the championship before we go into round 8, it will feel like a formality to him. He only needs to bring the car home. That's not what Kelly wants right now. He wants this to go the distance, looks up the inside there versus Nagy. Nagy tries to ballet around the outside, still there as I head down towards turn number 6. Well, Nagy not just there to fill up the numbers on the grill, I can tell you that, battling hard, but then Jared Kelly finds his way through, finds his way into P14. His next target is Glenn Bratton, who is 1.8 seconds up the road, but he knows he has got a long way to go if he wants to try and get himself into the top 10 as a minimum in this race, and deal with the fact that right now he's got 4 cars between himself in that 10th place spot, with Kevin Clark holding on to the aforementioned position. But as he heads on through turn at number 10, we'll keep an eye on the progress of Kelly with great interest, as meanwhile we look here to David Turn, the Century Slots driver, your leader, and well, he has not found himself in this position leading the Prime class in a very long time, and he's never found himself leading the race overall, as far as my memory serves me correctly, in the middle of that Racing League Series, of course. And right now the 135 driver will feel as though all he's got to worry about is Charles Hosey, and also the grass. He takes a trip to it, and as he runs wide there, catching the car, beautiful collection of the car there as he brought it back together, but he won't make that mistake out of turn 4 in a hurry once more. He's still got 15 minutes to go, and well, if that was not a brown trousers moment, as we like to say in the world of motorsport, I don't know what was. But as he heads on through the S's, we ride on board and look back for your race leader, as the top 2 Prime drivers now do have Mark Senegal closing. Senegal's only 1.3 seconds behind. You can see him, there's a distant speck in the picture with Tanner Dibble hot on the heels of the AM leader. So therefore the pros still trying to make their way up to this pack. They've got a way to go, but Turn absolutely on the limit right now. You can see it in the body language of the car, just from the angle we have here, and the fact the car not looking happy. Meanwhile, Dibble up the inside of what Senegal for P3 in the rear of the picture, moving up the inside into the hairpin. And I think the Sunday GT Turtles driver right now just wary of the fact that he doesn't want to fight too hard, because he knows that right now there's a lot more at stake in the AM Championship now than fighting for overall positions. He makes his way up into turns 1 and 2, and he wants these back-to-back wins to carry on that chain of wins from Indianapolis last week. As they head in towards turns 3, 4 once again. Meanwhile, further down the order, and were effectively almost a lap down, as in fact these guys did come out of the pits after their major incident, that fast repair. They had a short tow, given the fact it happened at the start for this straight, and you can see on the circuit map on the top right corner of your screen, this is the battle for P18, P7 in the Prime class, but you've got 2 race-leading pace drivers in the form of Matt Best and David Adeyeye, who right now, only what is the best part of 2 seconds behind them. You've then got the overall leader of David Turn chasing after them, and Turn would like to get a bit closer, I suspect, to be able to get a distant tow and start to use the traffic to his advantage. And Best and Adeyeye getting very close to each other, coming down towards the hairpin. 2 tenths they exited turn number 10, but Best still holding on that battle, as meanwhile Aaron Lark, who started from what was P21 this grid, the privateer up into P10. A great start so far to this race after an absolutely awful end to his race in race number 1. and the 147 driver right now, after what was the high of Indianapolis last time out, he's not been able to recapture that as he turns in a bit too early there on the apex of the U-shaped hairpin at turn 11, and you notice he had to open the steering wheel very quickly in order to avoid making contact with the stationary tyre barrier there, and indeed that being so that drivers cannot cut the hairpin, they have to run the full distance around it, and well, if you make contact with those tyre barriers, I can tell you one thing, it is not nice, and it will completely crumple the suspension. But as he heads in towards turns 13 and 14, right now the 147 driver are keeping car honest as they chase each other, and Kirk Lane only 6 tenths in front of them. There's the Bearpo driver, who right now on course for his best results of the season with 12 minutes left on the clock plus the final lap, and the 281 of Lane keeping itself high and dry here as he makes his way on through turn number 60. We hope he can just keep clear of Clark and Lyle for long enough to get the two of them to start battling each other as he makes his way on through the SSC. Meanwhile, Best versus Adeyeye, and this time is Adeyeye gets an absolutely glorious run out to 10. Look around the outside, Best goes defensive. Now can Adeyeye look for the cutback run out the corner? He does try to, with Best being absolutely planted to the inside. Leaders then come through the camera shot in the rear, but Adeyeye now gets the inside of 12. Two wide they'll go across the timing line, up the hill into turns 1 and 2. Side by side they go all the way through the ascent, and Best's going to try and hold it. Oh, goodness me! And in the end, it's a disaster for Adeyeye, just snatching the car in the grass, and it sends Best to the grass, with both drivers in contact. That's going to put them firmly a lap down now on the leaders, and well, it was absolutely great two wide into a tiny touch of the grass into the braking zone for Adeyeye into turn 2, and in the end trying to get the car under control in the process, tapping the car of Best, and these cars so light, and indeed at these speeds they will take off as we just saw, but still great racing from them until it did go horribly wrong. But then again, when they're racing to the limit, every point's pivotal and moments like that can happen, but that does mean that with David Turn now clear of a bit of traffic for the time, with Todd Miller the next car that's going to be a lap down effectively, 33 seconds up the road. All Turn has got Halsey and Dibble right behind him still as they head on through the right-hander. Turn number 10 up towards 11 they go, nothing between them at the moment, but Halsey is closing up a little bit as they head onto the brakes this time, and coming on through the right-hander, and as they exit, well, it's going to be Halsey goes deep. Dibble's going to look for the run here, and well, now can Turn use this to his advantage? Can he get Halsey and Dibble to fight each other and buy him some time? Well, it doesn't look as though he can quite do so, with Dibble in the end not quite getting the run through what was 12 into 1 that he wanted, so backs off. Meanwhile, Jaden Calloway all over the rear of AM leader Senegal as they fight for P4. And he's got Jason Landry for company, hot on his heels as they make the way up in towards turns 3 and 4. And we get on the nose camera here of what is the number 5 of Landry off of the front end plate. And as they make the way over the curb, you can see Landry getting the better run through 4, but the problem is too close to attack Calloway into 5. Indeed, getting it at the wrong time that speed. And as he looks to the inside here, it's turn number 6 going to go for the move up the inside. And these two really have been the two fastest driving the grid all season. Calloway in the first half of the season had a natural pace advantage, which we saw at both what was Chicago and also Detroit and Long Beach, but right now Landry coming on strong versus Calloway, and well, the number 5 driver would like to wrap things up here today if he can by giving himself the most possible points in order to be able to head into that season finale at the Circuit of the Americas on what is fine form. But as they head down to the braking zone, Calloway getting ahead of Senegal on the outside, and Senegal immediately ducks the outside and stays there. Now his teammate Landry's coming on through, and as they make the way out turn 11 this time, it's all changed, but meanwhile it's not changed about for P2 as Dibble continues to find a way past what is Halsey, but Charles Halsey proves to be absolutely stubborn here as they head up the rises towards turns 1 and 2. 11 minutes complete, 9 still on the clock to go, and Charles Halsey right now is doing an incredible job of keeping Tanner Dibble at bay and still staying with David Turn. And the problem is that right now I don't think the Slipstream Josh driver's got the pace, and Halsey gets the better run out of 4 as Turn takes the grass slightly. Well, it's too wide into the corner as they exit out of it. It's oh goodness, it's going to be 3 wide in contact there from what was Dibble onto the rear right wheel arch of what was, I do believe, Halsey's car, sending Dibble up into the stratosphere for a brief moment. Halsey carries on, Dibble does as well. I think they've got away with it. I don't know how to be honest. I'm amazed that Dibble's car still points in the straight line, and as they make the way on through the S's, well, that's going to result in Turn losing multiple places there as they had the 3 wide, and will now Calloway through, Landry through, and Turn's got Senegal right behind. We'll be able to say that Senegal looking up the inside as they come through 10, and I think now Turn might just be back of the car. Perhaps he's overcooked the tyres, but Turn is not happy in the car. He's going defensive into turn 11. He wants to stop the rot in terms of the places, and well, Adam Ballard's only 5 seconds down the road as well. as they head on to the next lap, going on to lap number 11. After what is 12 minutes of race, Charles Halsey now finds himself leading over in the Prime class, head of Tanner Dibble, your pro leader. Jaden Calloway is P3, head of Jason Landry, followed by David Turn. Your AM leader, Mark Single, is P6, ahead of Adam J Ballard. Then it's Kevin Clark, Aaron Lahr, and then your second place AM driver, P10. Kirk Lane, who's got a very fast and furious Jared Kelly trying to chase him down. But the one thing that Lane has in his back pocket is the fact he does have an 8-second gap to this man who is best the rest, and right now wants the P2 in the AM cars in order to try and minimise the damage done in his chase after Mark Senegal for that championship crown. Because Senegal, after the winning race one, whether he brings home even a 6th place in this second race, it'll be the AM win once again, and he'll feel as though he is the favourite of the circuit in the Americas to wrap things up by just simply getting the car home. Whereas Kelly will need the win in the AM class, and he'll need a huge haul of overall points in order to make the overhaul happen. I mean, well, as he makes his way in towards the S's, we look back to your leader here as this top battle right now, absolutely on top form and getting incredibly close, and obviously trying to become the 4th prime driver, or non-pro driver, we should say, in the history of what is the middle of the pack racing league series as a whole, to take an overall win. The first one, of course, taking it was Ilya Speaker. We then did see one from David Adeyeye, and also from what has been Aaron Lahr. Both Adeyeye and Lahr taking overall wins over the course of this season. Meanwhile, Ilya Speaker taking the win in the Radical series at the end of 2023 and being the first ever to do so. But right now, Charles Halsey trying to become the 4th and emulate the achievements of his fellow Rockefeller esports driver who took the first ever one, and that's why we call it the Speaker Award for taking an overall win when you're not a pro driver. But as they make their way down towards turn number 6, well, Halsey right now defending as hard as he can, and well, this is only going to help what will be Calloway and also Landry get into the fight, and Halsey will be hoping that works the way he wants it to, in the fact that right now he wants the 3 pros to fight over the pro lead behind him rather than focus on him. But of course they don't get bonus points for finishing on the pro podium, they only get the overall points, so therefore they'll want to bring Halsey down, because that's where the 50 points of winning will be, plus a point for the fastest lap of each race and a point for pole. As they head down into the braking zone for turn number 11, Halsey going defensive again. Dibble trying to get the cutback run out the corner, does so, but Halsey manages to match him as they head through the kink of 12. As they power the one through, Halsey taking the natural racing line, believing he's got enough of O speed to be able to hold Dibble at bay, but Dibble says, I disagree, and as they go up through 1, Halsey's on the outside to inside into 2, and well, when Dibble can put pressure on like this, right now, it's going harder and harder as there's a car off that. It's Nick Yakubov who makes sure not to rejoin until the leaders have made the way past him. We can understand they're probably getting the blue flag warning from his crew chief. Meanwhile, they head down towards turn number 5, Dibble thinking about it once more, but can't quite make it happen as they head out of the corner. Out towards 6 they go. You can see Dibble now having to think what's going on behind me, because it could be that they start to fight each other or him. Calloway going defensive versus Landry into 6, so that is going to buy Dibble some time. In fact, you can see the gap, it's already opened up. It's opened up half a second alone as they head through the S's, and Landry on the inside there through 8 onto the outside 8, and Landry loses the rear of the car, and well, in the end not quite able to carry the speed he would like to, and I suspect the lack of rear downforce as a result of that caused the rear of the car to come loose, and in the end Calloway making sure to pick the right racing line in order to frustrate Jason Landry and do what was needed. But meanwhile, we've got to look back to the front of the field as there is Tanner Dibble, goes very deep at the hairpin, and well, thankfully it's got a long runoff area. But meanwhile, Charles Halsey holds on to lead, 6/10 is the gap, 5 minutes still to go, and can the Rockefeller Esports green driver keep that gap open, or will he be reeled in once again? We'll have to wait and see. As they make the way up the hill, we do then look to Aaron Lahr versus Adam J Ballard as they fight over P8 overall, and what is more importantly for them, P4 in the prime class, relative speaking. And as they head in towards turn at number 1, we can see their Ballard having to go slightly defensive between the apexes. Meanwhile, Lahr just maintaining his line and trying to get under the skin of his rivals. They head down towards turn at number 3. That downhill drop, the uphill run for the apex of the blind crest of an absolutely lovely run. As Ballard meanwhile runs a bit wide, Lahr holding in position. And meanwhile, David Turn has had to be towed to the pits. We're not quite sure what's happened to Turn, but that is a heartbreak there for Slipstream Slots, because Turn was on course to take his best ever result of the season when it wasn't to be. In the end, I believe it was an incident at turn number 5. He may have made contact with the barrier on the exit, and if so, we can understand why the car had to be towed. But meanwhile, we look to your leaders here as it's another run. Halsey goes to the middle of the road, and I think that might be going to the middle of the road unnecessarily there. That's only going to cost a bit of pace coming out the corner. And, well, in fact, Dibble not getting the best of runs through turn number 11, so the gap neutralised to what is 4.5 tenths as they head onto another lap, onto lap number 15. They'll have 2 more after this one based on the race 1 lap distance. And as I head over the rides, well, the pace of this race definitely lower compared to the pace of the previous race, with the prime driver up front, and the fact the average lap times have been the 111s at the front of the field rather than, and when I say the 111s, the mid to high rather than it was the low 111s and even the high 110s in our first race. But that goes to show you the top 10 inversion of the starting grid. It does mean you end up with that mixture of pace, and if drivers can't find their way through, then it becomes ever harder to do. But meanwhile, looking back to your AM leader for Sunday, GT Turtles of Senegal in the 227 right now in a comfortable space, as meanwhile his teammate Jason Landry looking to recover, looking up the inside there of Clark into turn 6. Clark's not going to fight this too hard, knowing that his quandary is not with Landry, albeit he'd love to get the overall points, but I think Clark will be more cognizant of the fact that Adam Ballard's not too far behind. He's building up a train of cars, and in the end Landry does go around the outside at 8 just in time before the run into the 8A complex where it all went wrong. Meanwhile, Lar versus Ballard will be right back aboard here. And Aaron Larsley makes his way in top gear in towards turn number 10. A small lift there due to the dirty air and not having the confidence to carry the speed, and the front end not wanting to bite. But he gets very close down to breaking into turn number 11. Well, Ballard goes a little bit deep on the apex, but Lar not quite able to seize the opportunity. And I think these two right now pushing each other every step of the way. 2 laps to go based on time available. Our leaders are just heading to turns 3 and 4, but right now everywhere you look inside the top 10, there's battles of plenty, and even some battles outside the top 10. We're staying here with a battle for P7 for now of what is Ballard versus Lar as they head up towards what will be turns 3 and 4. Can he find a way in this time? Not really. It's not really an overtaking spot. It's all about making your rival have a mistake here if you can. Mental pressure, but no mistakes forthcoming from either of them as they come through the right-hander of 5 and continue their way down towards the first of 2 hairpins. On the anchors here at turn number 6, nothing between them. Clark has been passed by Landry. We can confirm that after the move that's made on the previous lap. Clark now 8 tenths ahead of this battle, so therefore he can be drawn in right towards the end here. And as we look back to the exterior pictures again, you can see Lar turn in early there to offset the dirty and trying to carry more speed this time. I think Lar's worried about the fact that he can't carry enough speed being this close, and what he needs to do is turn in early in order to offset that dirty air, and then he can go flat out like he would in a clear air lap on through the S's. But of course it comes to the risk of mounting those apex curves. But meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, as we do see Ballard going a bit deep, Lar trying to get the run on the exit, it won't be enough. Well, your leaders have gone on to a fine lap. Tanner Dibble sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 10.566, and one even fast lap from Landry, a 1 minute 10.497. But as they head on the rise, well, Lar looking to the inside into 2. Ballard's going to give the space, but not capitalised on by Lar. Meanwhile, Halsey still holding on for now with 30 seconds to go. This will be their final lap. Charles Halsey breaking the toe every time he comes out of a corner here. He's worried. He wants this overall win. He wants to put his name in the history books in the MPRL, but the Rockefeller Esports green driver has only got where's the best part of another 4 corners to go as he makes his way through turns 8 and 8A. And well, meanwhile, Dibble right now 4 attempts behind. And what has Dibble got anything left? Has he got anything left in the tyres, let alone his own stamina as they head through turn number 10? This will be the last time an overtaking opportunity will present itself for what will be Dibble as Halsey breaks the toe again, trying to make sure that Dibble's got no way through. And as they make the way out of the final major corner, he charges to the line, and everything that's thrown in by Tanner Dibble, it wasn't enough as Charles Halsey takes the overall win and the prime win with it for Rockefeller Esports Green and a Tanner Dibble P2. And then it will be Jaden Calloway who in the end takes P3 ahead of Mark Senegal, your AM winner, his best result of the season as well, the P4 overall for Sunday GT Turtles. And a teammate Jason Landry takes the fastest lap on the final lap of the day. Kevin Clark P6 ahead of Adam J Ballard P7, Aaron Lar, and then Kirk Lane finishes P9, just fending off a charge from what was their Matt Best on lap himself. And Jared Kelly does enough in the end to recover to complete a run to P10, the privateer, and 3rd place in the AM class behind Lane. And then Joe Nagy P11 as he crossed the line ahead of Carl Peterson with another solid P4 and P12 overall for Caboose Crew, and a lovely drive there for the 250 driver ahead of Glenn Bratton, who we see coming to line here, the privateer. A pair of top 5s to boot today. He'll be pleased with that, no doubt about it. And then Billman DaCosta will be your last lead lap finisher, P14 for Bear Pope, and Bear Pope having one of their better days of the season here at Sonoma Raceway. But he will be your last lead lap finisher with Julian Jones, David Adeyeye, Matt Best, and Todd Miller a lap down. 2 laps down to Nick Yakubov, and David Turn 4 laps down, and your last classified finishing driver. But meanwhile, as this man makes his way down towards the pit lane, he's going to be absolutely ecstatic when he jumps out of the ring. It's taken an overall win. They come very few and far between him for our pro drivers, but for Charles Halsey today, he becomes the 4th ever non-pro driver to take an overall win. And well, the Rockefeller Esports Green driver was pushed every step of the way by Tanner Dibble, but the DNA Motorsports driver just did not have enough in the end in order to throw in a whole seat in the closing stages of the race. But still a pro win there, an important one for Dibble to keep his hunt versus Jason Landry alive. Meanwhile, the Sunday GT Turtles driver Mark Senegal doing donuts there to celebrate on the drag strip here alongside his teammate Jason Landry. And will Senegal knowing now that all it takes is for him to bring the car home at what is at the Circuit of the Americas in a week's time, and he will become the AM champion for this season. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And what I do believe here they are, as they do appear on screen. And as we can see, after race number 2, our feature race here at the Sonoma Raceway circuit in the US state of California in the Middle of the Pack Racing League Spring to F4 Championship Series for 2024, sponsored by PT Actuator. Charles Halsey taking the win overall for Rockefeller Esports Green, and with it the Pro-Am win by 3 attempts over Tanner Dibble for DNA Motorsports. Behind the Pro winner was Jaden Calloway, Pro run-up and P3 overall for ITD West. Mark Senegal P4 there, your AM winner, back-to-back AM wins once again for the Sunday GT Turtles driver, and taking the win over his teammate Jason Landry, P5 there overall for Sunday GT Turtles. A great score for the team, and that will put them on a high going into what will be the season finale. None they've taken the lion's share of the points, and therefore they are on course to take that team's championship crown. Kevin Clark, P6, the privateer, wrapping up a run to P2 in the Prime class, just ahead of Adam Ballard by the best part of what was 1.1 seconds. The Rockefeller Esports purple driver completing the Prime podium of Halsey, Clark and Ballard. Then Aaron Lark, P8, the privateer, with some misfortune in the race, not quite able to recover to a podium finish, but coming close. Then Kirk Lane at P9, run up in the AM class, and he'll be happy with a podium result. Indeed, I believe that's his first podium of the season in the AM class for Bearpo. If it's not his first, it's one of a very limited number, I must say. And then the privateer Jared Kelly, who fell to P18 in the early stage of the race after leading the AM class. Well, a brilliant recovery to finish inside the top 10, and that's exactly what he all wanted. Joe Nagy, P11, best the rest, Rockefeller Esports Orange ahead of Carl Peterson by the best part of what was 9 seconds. The Caboose crew driver then being followed by Glenn Bratton and Bill DaCosta to complete your lead lap finishers, 14 lead lap finishers as tailed by the Bearpoat driver. And in ITD West, Julian Jones at P15 ahead of the privateer David Adeyeye, Matt Best and Todd Miller to P18, all 4 of those drivers being a lap down in terms of the finishing order. And then as we look to the rest of the field, 2 laps down to Nick Yakubov, Slipstream Sloths, 2 laps ahead of his teammate David Turn, also classified as a finisher, as you must finish the race within 5 laps of the race winner to be classified. And then your retirees of Jordan Butler for DNA Motorsports and Braden Mellon, the privateer, not able to get the car on the grid, unfortunately, for race number 2, P22 for the privateer. But what a pair of races, ladies and gentlemen, at Sonoma Raceway, and indeed setting us up in fine form for what is our season finale in a week's time at the Circuit of the Americas. But that will be the last of our 2 race rounds this season, and well, Sonoma absolutely delivered on the centre stage. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community in terms of how you can be on the grid for our future series, including, I do believe, what is a trip to the LMP3 machines, those wonderful V8 prototypes for the end of 2024, and plenty more at the Middle of the Pack Racing League. Well, for all that, do go to our official Discord, invite link available on screen, as you can see there. Indeed, one of the premier and rising stars of the North American racing communities on iRacing. But whether you're based on the North American continent or further abroad, you're all welcome at the Middle of the Pack Racing League. We can promise you that. But if you don't want to go to our Discord, perhaps you're a little bit shy or more of a social media person, well, then we do recommend you follow us on Twitter. Our handle being at twitter.com/MOP Racing. We can stay up to date with all the latest announcements regarding our ongoing and upcoming series, and also find out about the trials and tribulations of the official Middle of the Pack Racing teams. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our sponsor for this season, PT Actuator, the web address being www.pt-actuator.com. And if you are looking for the pinnacle of racing and flight simulation experiences, PT Actuator are your go-to brand. With over a decade of experience at the forefront of actuator-based motion systems, PT Actuator's huge range of premium quality products are purpose-built to ensure you can experience the gold standard when simulating motion in your simulator. Whether you're looking for a simple one-dimensional freedom system or want to maximize your immersion through a 6-dimensional freedom system, PT Actuator have got you covered. To find out more about their product range, head to pt-actuator.com today for all the details. details. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, the details have proven absolutely pivotal over the course of 7 rounds of racing this season. But as we'll be looking to our season finale in a week's time, round 8 of 8 will be arrived at, and we'll be heading to the US state of Texas for the one and only Circuit of the Americas. The racing will occur on what will be Wednesday, the 5th of June, but join us as if it were live on Sunday, the 9th of June, for us to bring the curtain down and see how our second series of 2024 at the Middle of the Pack Racing League concludes. In the Pro class, Landry leads the way and continues to do so with a slightly increased advantage, and then all he's got to do is bring up the car on home to take victory in the championship. In the Pro-Am class, it's all been shaken and stirred with the results today, and indeed it could be the form of any one of a number of contenders, including David Adeyeye, Julian Jones, and also what is J Ballard. And in the AM class, Mark Senegal just needs to bring it home at the Circuit of the Americas to become AM champion. But will there be a surprise in store, and can Jared Kelly find a way to spring back at the end? For all that and more, tune in a week's time. But until then, we've been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.